Hi, welcome to my channel. For all those who are new here, my name is Justin Lin, and this channel is focused on technology and career success. Before we begin, I would really appreciate it if you can hit that like and subscribe button below to help support the channel. This video is going to talk a bit about how I got into Amazon as an intern with the full-time return offer. And this will also serve as a quick start guide for students on how to pass the faang level interviews and ultimately getting an offer. I'll be breaking this video down into these main sections on the side, and there will be timestamps below down in the description. There will also be a written guide that's more in depth and cover topics that I cannot possibly cover here because I do want to keep this video between 10 to 15 minutes long. So first, what is my story? At the time of this video, I'm a rising senior at NYU doing full stack web development. And I've just finished my internship with Amazon this previous summer with a full-time return offer. I've also previously interned at JPMC or JP Morgan Chase as an iOS engineer. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. During my sophomore year, I had a 2.9 GPA, I was on academic probation, and was hospitalized at the time due to stress and overexhaustion. On top of this, my return offer at the time from JPMC required me to have a 3.3 GPA or above. And because of that requirement, my situation at the time was quite unclear because I didn't know if I could still keep the internship, and I didn't know if I could find another job due to my low GPA. But as I later found out, most faang companies actually do not care about your GPA. Instead, you can actually use projects, past experience, or your passion in order to show your competency to these companies. There's another video which I will link down below that goes more in depth about this. Speaker also struggled quite badly in school, but ended up getting to Amazon, then Microsoft, then Google. And I think he simplifies the process perfectly, that as long as you can get the interview and pass something called the technical interview, then you can get into any of these top companies. And so that video really gave me hope that as long as I could pass this so-called technical interview, that I could get into a faang level company. For those of you who don't know what a technical interview are, they're essentially brain teaser questions for software engineering. And you need to solve these questions using data structures and algorithm. But this actually catches people off guard because the skill set that you need to pass these technical interviews are completely different than the ones you get from working in industry or even on a software engineering project. So it can definitely be very daunting to start because it is a separate skill set. But there are patterns and ways to crack the interview. So let's go on to the resources that I recommend in order to study for these technical interviews. The three I recommend in order are Grokking the Coding Interview, Algo Expert, and Leetcode Premium. First, I recommend Grokking the Coding Interview. It's an ebook with an integrated IDE. It is especially good for beginners and anyone trying to build a solid foundation because it breaks common interview problems into 15 distinct chunks and helps to recognize and teaches you how to solve these problems in a very systematic way. And this systematic approach really helps you create more consistencies during your interviews, because it gives you tools on how to approach a problem and how to solve a problem no matter what you face. Second resources I recommend is Algo Expert. I think that Algo Expert is a great supplement to Grokking because they have great video explanations to every single problem that they have on their website. Their integrated IDE is great because it allows you to write in multiple languages. And if you ever feel stuck on a problem, you can just watch their video explanation. Personally, I use Grokking in order to cover things that Grokking didn't cover or that I just didn't understand on Grokking. But the reason why I ultimately say that they're only a supplement to Grokking is because Grokking still does a better job at a systematic approach. If you do Algo Expert, I don't recommend to do anything hard or above. You only need to do easy and medium. Once you reach hard level difficulty, every video becomes 1 hour long and it becomes super brutal. So just do easy and medium. Finally, I recommend Leetcode Premium. I'm sure most of you have heard of Leetcode, but if you haven't, it's essentially one of the most popular technical interview prep websites. It has thousands of coding questions on there, but I do think there is a misconception with Leetcode. Personally, I've heard the phrase a Leetcode a day keeps unemployment away. But the reality is that just doing Leetcode does nothing. Doing hundreds of Leetcode questions doesn't lead to any sort of consistency or understanding. But even though I don't believe in the phrase above, which is a Leetcode a day keeps unemployment away, I do believe that it has its proper use case, which is that if you have a solid foundation, if you did Grokking, if you did Algo Expert, you can take advantage of Leetcode Premium, which gives you access to a curated question bank for companies. Personally, I've seen some of these curated questions come up during my actual interview process. So I do think prepping through their Explore section for company guides is quite helpful. I do understand that all these resources cost money, but I think that if you were to split these costs with a friend, that it would be worth it. And if you had to choose only one resource, I recommend Grokking the Coding Interview. Because personally, and I know other friends, think that Grokking the Coding Interview made the most difference for them in getting a faang level offer. And if you do get a job, then your salary and signing bonus should be more than enough to make up your initial investment for these studying resources. At the end of the day, there's no guarantee into getting into these companies, but I hope that these resources will help guide you along the right track. Now onto the timeline for the interview process. Most companies will post their listings for interns and new grads during the month of September, which means that you should be applying during this time. You would then, if you pass the resume stage, get an OA or an online assessment, which is essentially take-home coding questions. And if you pass the OA, you will be contacted for multiple phone interviews. For interns, it is usually 2 to 3 rounds, and for new grad, I'm currently unsure because I'm going through the process myself, but I also believe it is 2 to 3 rounds. So as you begin to see, it is actually not that bad. As long as you can get the interview, pass the OA, and pass just 2 more rounds, you are now in a faang level company. So what does that mean for your timeline? Well, it means that you should be applying in September, get an OA near the end of September or beginning of October. You should then be able to pass the OA, which is usually due from 1 to 2 weeks from when you receive it. And if you pass in another 2 to 4 weeks, you should be contacted out to schedule a phone interview. You usually can schedule your phone interviews 2 weeks to 2 months out from when you first receive the email, but do know that hiring is on a rolling basis. That said, if you do feel like you need more time to study, do ask for an interview spot that is further out. It's better to be more prepared than less prepared. There are obviously going to be exceptions. Companies do hire earlier and hire later. So I highly recommend you join Facebook groups like South Asian Tech, South Asian Networking, or you can even just go on Reddit groups like csMajors. I'll also update the written guide below in the description with more company-specific things that I personally have experienced. The last section in this video that I want to cover is the biggest tip I have in passing the phone interview, which is using an outline or a template. Based on my past interview experience, I have created my own personalized template for when I do my interviews, which I believe can help you guys, and is linked in the description. Why do you need a template? Well, it helps you stay organized, helps you check off a list of what they're looking for, and helps calm your nerves down. So starting off with my template, I usually have at the very top some coding strategies. This usually helps me narrow down my problem scope and reference common ways in order to how to approach a problem. Such as, for example, if you are given an array, you oftentimes need to utilize hash maps or pointers. Then following that, I have what I actually write in the comment section during an interview. The first one being questions, where I try to clarify the scope of the question and try to figure out edge cases. For example, if you get an array of integers, is the input array all positive? What do you do if the input is empty? Is there any overflow condition where maybe it exceeds the maximum integer representation, which for Java or C++ you need to worry about? I then usually follow up with a brute force or intuitive approach to the problem. And what I mean by this is that instead of jumping straight into the problem and the technical specifications about hash map, arrays, binary trees, just think, how do I solve this as a human being? So if I gave you the problem of how do I sort an array, you as a human being might say, okay, well first I'll look at the possible range of numbers, I'll find the smallest and then move that to the front and then just keep repeating that. From there, once you have your intuitive approach or your brute force approach, you can begin to bullet point out some pseudocode and get some pre-written like analysis about your time and space complexity before you actually type out your real code. What this helps you do is by understanding intuitively how it works first, you begin to clear up your head, and also your technical interviewer will be able to follow your train of thought more easily. This also just lets you quickly like move around your pseudocode and like change things up as necessary until you get approval from your interviewer. This might seem a bit convoluted and long, but what it does is that every step of the way, you're letting your interviewer follow your train of thought, and also you're opening yourself up to feedback from the interviewer. Remember that the interviewer does exist, and by saying things like, hey, does this pseudocode look good? Or by saying, hey, does this potential time and space complexity look good? Usually your interviewer will jump in and say, oh yeah, that looks good. Or hey, maybe can you change this bullet point? Which really will help you narrow down the possibilities. And finally, the rest of it is simple. Write out your actual code, debug it, and give your final time and space complexity. Just note that where your code should be valid, that oftentimes you can use pseudocode or pseudo helper functions. Such as maybe you want your string to be preprocessed, you can just comment out a fake function and say, this function does this. Obviously, don't do that for the entire problem, but for just small things, you can usually use pseudocode. Now for some final advice. I just want to tell people that you can do it, but you need to work hard. The reason why faang level companies are so difficult isn't because that the resources aren't out there, but that they just require so much studying. Ultimately, I'm not a genius. Most people probably have above a 2.9 GPA. Most people probably didn't get placed on academic probation. Most people probably gotten more than a D in their algorithms class. What I did was I made sure that I was consistent in my interview prep. Every day, whether it was weekend or weekend, I was in the library with my friends doing interview and mock questions 24/7. You will go through multiple rejections. I got rejected from Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Airbnb, Twitch, but none of that mattered. All it takes is one offer. which for me was obviously Amazon. As long as you succeed, no one will look at your rejections for failure. So just stay consistent. Even if it takes 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you will get there. But you need to put in the work. Luck to me really is the intersection of hard work and opportunity. And if you get the opportunity to join a FAANG level company, you need to have had put in the hard work already. Anyways, I hope this video was able to help one person out. Feel free to check out the written guide down below and the coding template. And I really hope to make more content based off of my technical journey, career success, and hopefully keep making content that can help other people.